In Honduras, presidential pre-candidates Moncada, Nasralla and Asfura declared themselves as the winners of the primary elections in their respective parties. In Palestine, the people of Gaza condemned Israel's decision to cut off the electricity supply in the territory. And some 13 German airports are closed to stoppage due to a 24-hour nationwide strike summoned by the Verdi trade union to demand a pay rise. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Honduras, presidential pre-candidates Moncada, Nasralla and Asfura declared themselves as the winners of the primary elections in their respective parties. To this moment, the National Electoral Council of Honduras continues the vote counting as the three main political organizations, which are the Libre, the National Party and the Liberal Party, decided their candidates. More than 5.8 million Hondurans were summoned to vote this Sunday in elections marked by technological advances and a continued process of democratic recovery after the country was submerged in a deep social crisis. The winning presidential pre-candidates in this first context will face each other in the general elections of November 30th, 2025, when the country will choose its next president, deputies and mayors. At a press conference, the presidential candidate for the Liberty and Refoundation Party, Moncada, stated that she will initiate a new stage of dialogue and unity, not only in the party, but also with various sectors in the country.
We are going to initiate a new stage. This new stage is the stage of construction, of unity within the party after this day of competition, but it is also the stage of construction, of unity at national level, of dialogue with all sectors to continue the process of refoundation. We remind the bipartisan coup and retrograde bipartisanship that violence has no future, that in 2009, through a violent act, they removed a president and the people defeated him in the streets. In 2013, they committed fraud and we defeated them. In 2017, we defeated them. In 2021, we defeated them, and again in 2025, we are going to defeat them.
Several Panamanian unions have been picketing to reject the Social Security Fund bill passed by the National Assembly. In this context, the People United for Life Alliance announced the governmental plans to take over the entity's funds to privatize them with an individual system, which was the proposal of the popular movement. Likewise, the alliance denounced legislators' maneuvers in their attempt to both raise the retirement age and offer lower pensions that are far from being profitable. In addition, social movements warned that they had a list of over 15 possible sources where funds could be siphoned from the state. In Argentina, football fans will support mobilizations of the retirees to claim for a repair in the retirement pension and against Milei's government's adjustment policies. Every Wednesday, retired citizens claim their rights and protest against government's policies. These demonstrations have been severely repressed by the federal police under orders from the Ministry of Security, Patricia Bullrich. What started as a gesture of solidarity from the Chacarita Club fans turned into a self-convocation that promises to take the next mobilization to historic levels. The mobilization is scheduled for next Wednesday at 5 p.m. at the front of the National Congress and has the support of leading figures of Argentine football and the best-known teams. In Peru, firefighting crews tried to extinguish a fire that has been burning for 6 days in Lima. Brigadier Carlos Malpica of the General Volunteer Fire Department of Peru reported that the fire is 90% under control, stressing that work is continuing to get to the heart of the incident. He also said that 7 buildings were affected and 5 had partial collapses, and that the firefighting work has consumed 2 million gallons of water. The fire was originated 6 days ago in an unlicensed toy and packaged food store in a building. The incident left 100 victims. And 20 personnel affected by the smoke and toxic gases. In Costa Rica, the eruption of the Puas volcano caused the temporary closure of the national park surrounding the geological phenomenon in the northern province of Alajuela after two constant eruptions in the crater's mouth and sea, which caused a 300-meter column of gases and particles. Authorities decided to temporarily close the national park to protect visitors and staff working in it. Experts argue that the decrease in the level of hyperacid lake in the crater enhances the existence of particles among the gases. The National Emergency Commission also urged authorities to intensify security actions and evaluate internal resources in case of an emergency situation. In Greece, a Mediterranean monk seal is ready to be released to wildlife after less than 2 months of being found orphaned and struggling for her life south of the country. The specimen, named Constantina, is one of dozens of Mediterranean monk seals nursed back to health and released into the wild by Greece's MOM, a charity dedicated to the care and protection of the rare marine mammal whose population had dwindled to the point of facing extinction. For decades they were hunted, contributing to a major population decline that led the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, to list them as critically endangered. In recent years, the species climbed down one notch on the IUCN's red list of threatened species to endangered, and about a year ago improved one step further to vulnerable.
After the protection programs and public awareness began and society gradually began to change its stance towards nature and animals, the population began to recover. As a result, in recent years, from critically endangered it dropped one category, so the status of the species improved to endangered. And recently, about a year ago, when we as a specialized body made the assessment for the IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, it is now vulnerable. In other words, it dropped one more category, which means that it is in danger of extinction, but not to the extent it was before. The status of the population has improved greatly. Among all these actions, there was also care, which means helping animals that would essentially otherwise be condemned to die. Through care we help them return to their natural environment, to get well and then return, contributing to the population's recovery.
And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Palestine, the people of Gaza condemned Israel's decision to cut off the electricity supply in the territory. The event occurred on Sunday night after the Israeli State Minister of Energy, Eli Cohen, ordered the suspension of the electric power service in the Palestinian enclave. The announcement of the power cut coincides with the release of documents revealing the Zionist regime's intentions to intensify its illegal military operations in Gaza. Various humanitarian agencies have stated that the disruption of power supply severely damages essential infrastructure in the territory and could have devastating consequences.
We sleep without electricity, wash our clothes by hand, cook with wood, and there is no gas for cooking. Now our lives depend on wood, fire, and candles. We went back to 50 years ago to using candles.
Israel cut off electricity since the beginning of the war and announced cutting off water and electricity to the Gaza Strip. Consequently, we have been living without electricity for more than 15 months since Israel declared war on Gaza. The alternative is a generator in the street. There is no other alternative and the cost is high.
An Israeli non-governmental organization condemned as a collective punishment for Palestinians this cut of electricity supply to Gaza.
The desalination facility in Deir el-Balach was providing 18,000 cubic meters of water before the cutoff of electricity. So last night the electricity was shut off and the plant stopped functioning. Today it's expected to start running on backup generators and will be able to provide only 2,500 cubic meters of water. Israel is saying that it's cutting off the supply as a form of pressure, as a tactic to press Hamas to continue in phase one of the ceasefire arrangement to release more hostages. From Gisha's perspective, this is collective punishment, the stopping of humanitarian aid, the deliberate stopping of supply of electricity, of water, of medicine to the civilian population amounts to a war crime. It is Israel's obligation to supply these things to the civilian population.
The Hamas Palestinian Resistance Movement confirmed that several talks have been held with the U.S. on the ceasefire deal in Qatar. The senior Hamas leader told the U.S. delegation that they do not oppose the release of prisoners. Lately, Israel had reported to be preparing for negotiations, so that it sent Monday a delegation to Doha to discuss on the deal. Overall, the conversations aimed at moving to the next stage of the deal, which could pave the way for ending the war. However, the first phase of the ceasefire deal ended past week. Since then, Israel has imposed a full siege on all humanitarian aid entering Palestine. The United States claims to expect substantial progress in Ukraine talks to be held in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. This has been stated by Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff on Monday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is said to arrive in the kingdom, while the U.S. delegation made up of Witkoff and Secretary of State Marco Rubio hopes to close mineral deal as well as move forward in a peace agreement and ceasefire. For his part, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has stated that what the U.S. and everyone are waiting for is a definitive sign of Ukraine's desire for peace. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced that U.S. aid will cancel the majority of its programs. In his X account, Rubio stated that after a 6-week review, they are officially canceling 83% of programs at U.S. aid. According to the U.S. diplomat, the 5,200 contracts that are now cancelled spent tens of billions of dollars in ways that did not serve the core and national interest of the United States. He also added that in consultation with Congress, they intend for the remaining 18% of programs they are keeping to now be administered more effectively under the State Department. The U.S. aid agency was created in 1961 to distribute humanitarian aid through international programs in 120 countries. In the United States, 5 people were injured after a small plane crashed in the parking lot of a retirement community in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. The accident occurred at about 3:18 p.m. local time when the plane, a single-engine Beechcraft Bonanza, crashed into the Brethren Village retirement community in Manheim Township, said Scott Little, leader of the fire department, on Sunday night. He also detailed that 5 people aboard the aircraft were injured and were taken to local hospitals. About a dozen vehicles were damaged in the incident, while the building of the retirement center was not structurally damaged and no injuries were reported on the ground.
A small 6-seater aircraft, a Beechcraft Bonanza, crashed here on the property of Brethren Village. 5 passengers were on board. All 5 passengers were transported by local EMS agencies to local hospitals for treatment. No structural damage occurred on the Brethren Village property. We did have multiple vehicles catch on fire due to the aircraft.
We have a second story coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final shower break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. In Canada, the Liberal Party announced that economist Mark Carney is set to succeed Prime Minister Justin Trudeau amid political chaos in the country. In the party's internal elections, Carney received a broad support of 85.9% of the party's membership. Carney will replace Trudeau, who announced his resignation last January until a general election will be held. On March 24th, the Canadian Parliament will resume its work and will have to give a vote of confidence to the new Prime Minister. The next parliamentary elections in Canada are scheduled for October 20th, but it is expected Carney could announce early elections. This transition comes amid trade differences between Washington and Ottawa.
The Americans want our resources, our water, our land, our country. Think about it. If they succeeded, they would destroy our way of life. We didn't ask for this fight, but Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves. So the Americans, they should make no mistake, in trade as in hockey, Canada will win.
Greenland calls early parliamentary elections for March 11th amid political chaos. Since taking office 6 weeks ago, U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly expressed his interest in Greenland, rich in minerals and located along strategic sea lanes in the North Atlantic. According to a poll, 85% of Greenlanders do not want to be part of the United States, although the majority are in favor of independence. Amid concerns about foreign interference and demands that Greenlanders must control their own destiny, the island's Prime Minister Mute Boudou Ejede called early parliamentary elections for March 11th.
And because we don't want a colonial side twice again from another nation. So we have all the time said that we want to have our business with other countries, but not because we live in the democratic country, and we mean that it will be unrespectful just to do that.
Some 13 German airports, including the Frankfurt and Munich hubs, are closed to stoppage as a result of a 24-hour nationwide strike summoned by the Verdi trade union to demand a pay rise. Service workers, ground staff and aviation security comprise Verdi, so that they are rallying for sealing a collective wage deal for nearly 2.5 million public sector workers. So far, the picket line pursues due to the fact that a second round of pay talks failed. The federal government and local municipalities ensured Verdi's proposals are not financially viable, rejecting an 8% pay hike, higher bonuses, and 3 additional days off. Therefore, operations have been disrupted at major German airports as Frankfurt, Munich, Stuttgart, Hamburg, among others.
We want 8% for the trainees, 200 euros more. It's about time bonuses. It's about a working time account. In other words, the ability to organize your own working hours. The employer isn't doing anything about it. He really doesn't want to give anything. He says the budget is empty, that they can't do that. We're even heading for a pay freeze for a very long time of 36 months. We will add another one here before the third round of negotiations, and, of course, this will be across all airports here in Germany. It is an industry strike day, and we have also coordinated with the other airports, so to speak, to send a very clear signal that an offer must be made by the third negotiation date.
In the northeastern Upper Nile state of South Sudan, clashes broke out between forces allied to the President Salva Kiir and First Vice President Riek Machar, posing a threat to the 2018 governmental alliance. Last week, an armed youth militia attacked the Sudanese armed forces, from which the police arrested 2 government ministers and a deputy army chief ally to Machar. In this context, a United Nations helicopter was shot Friday amid a rescue mission, killing a crew member. In response to the incident, the chair of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights in the country, Yasmin Souka, urged for peace as she warned that the nation was at the brink of a civil war. Meanwhile, the U.S. administration withdrew Sunday all its non-emergency staff from South Sudan amid the ongoing confrontations. Gabon's interim president Brice Oligui Nguema will face 3 challengers in presidential polls, which are set to take place on April 12th. The official list was published by the Interior Minister on Sunday, including his main challenger, Alain Claude Billy Nsi, by addition to former executive of the Gabonese Democratic Party, Dr. Stéphane Germain Iloko, and lawyer and tax inspector Joseph Lapensi Esingon. 19 others were rejected but given 72 hours in which to lodge an appeal with the Constitutional Court. Nguema came to power in a 2023 military coup that ended in the long-standing rule of his predecessor Ali Bongo and his family. All 4 are running as independents, with campaigning scheduled to begin on March 29th. Internationally acclaimed South African playwright and actor Athol Fugard died on Sunday at age 92. Fugard was widely known as an anti-apartheid figure and left behind a powerful legacy of works like Master Harold and the Boys and Sizwe Bansi is Dead, works that have shaped theater in the African country. The South African government confirmed his death by stating that the nation had lost one of its greatest literary and theatrical icons. President Cyril Ramaphosa described him as the moral conscience of a generation.
You know, during the 40 years of apartheid, I was a very blinkered writer. I had one focus, which was to try and say as much as I could about that terrible system and what it was doing to people. Now, of course, that is past history. And the Captain's Tiger, I suppose, represents an attempt on my side to use the new freedoms that are there for us artists in the new South Africa.
Basic drive to human nature.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.